Good morning, Faith family. We're continuing our Tuesday, Thursdays in the Psalms. We're in a series of praying our emotions. Today, we're talking about doubt. And we looked at the extremes that are unhealthy, not denying our emotions or dumping our emotions, but directing them to God. You know, if you want to earn God's love, you feel like you have to prove your goodness, you're not going to be willing to admit your emotions when they don't fit into what you think he wants from you. But on the other extreme, if you don't think you need God's goodness, you're good on your own, you're just going to flaunt your emotions. They're going to be sovereign to you. This is how I feel. This is how it is. So we don't want to fake that emotions are good and stuff them down, and we don't want to flaunt our emotions. We want to pray our emotions. That's the third way that the Psalms offers to us. And when we read the Psalms, we're going to be blown away by the reality of anger and even hate and fear and sadness and guilt and shame that's honestly expressed. Sometimes you'd be like, wow, why is that in our Bible? But today the focus is on doubt. And you might not classify doubt as emotion, but doubt isn't merely intellectual. It's actually when our eyes tempt us to take something we know to be true in our head and doubt that it's real in our heart. But actually, honest doubt is healthy, and we shouldn't deny our doubts, and we shouldn't worship our doubts. We want to express our doubt to God in prayer, not unaware of them or overawed of our doubts. So we're going to process them, and we're going to do it with Psalm 73. So I'm going to read some verses from Psalm 73. I really encourage you to take the time to read this psalm sometime today, the whole thing. But here's a few verses. Truly God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. Behold, the wicked are always at ease, they increase in riches. All in vain have I kept my heart clean and washed my hands in innocence, for all day long I've been stricken and rebuked every morning. But when I thought how to understand this, it seemed to be a wearisome task, until I went into the sanctuary of God, and then I discerned their end. Truly you set them in slippery places. You make them to fall to ruin, how they are destroyed in a moment, swept away utterly by terrors. When my soul was embittered, when I was pricked in heart, I was brutish and ignorant. I was like a beast towards you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire beside you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. So when we talk about processing our doubt, we're going to look at the condition of doubt, the cause of doubt, and also the cure. What is doubt itself? In verse 2, we kind of see this language of climbing. The psalmist has a slip foothold. He's moving upward, he's trying to grow, and he slips. Imagine that moment when you're holding on to something, gravity's working against you, your muscles are tense, sweat's dripping off your forehead, and you feel like you're going to fall. That's kind of what doubt feels like. I almost fell. I almost let go of what I know to be true. And doubt is kind of like a spiritual form of vertigo. You ever had that where your eyes and your ears are giving a message to your brain that isn't able to process, and you feel dizzy and you feel out of sorts? Doubt can do that to us spiritually. And we're told that we're to walk by faith, not by sight. Doubt has to do when we see something, we experience something that doesn't match up with what we know to be true. Now, what specific thing did the psalmist see? What was the cause? Well, there can be millions of causes of doubt, but probably the biggest one is under the category of this idea, the problem of evil. When we see injustice, when we see wickedness prospering, we can struggle in trying to understand it. Now, I skipped verses 4 through 11. I encourage you to go back and read that. It's a crazy, painfully accurate description of our culture today and radical injustice. Sometimes we're tempted by what we see to let go of what we know to be true because of something we're beginning to feel in our heart. It's like eternal truth that we're standing on as a firm foundation is being played in audio, but what we're experiencing and what we feel in our heart is being played on video. It just seems more real to us in that moment. You know, you can intellectually say God might have a bigger purpose for this pain and this suffering, But when it happens to you, even though you don't have any new information to like process it logically, it becomes harder to believe. It doesn't feel real. It's like the psalmist says here in verse 14, "For all day long I have been stricken and rebuked every morning." So the pain he's feeling is bringing doubt into the situation. So the condition is like this instability, this spiritual vertigo. The cause is seeing something doesn't match up with what we know to be true in our head. And here's the cure. First of all, I encourage you to doubt your doubt. Don't just doubt your faith, doubt your doubt. In other words, be an honest skeptic. None of us have absolutely pure motives when it comes to doubt. Look at verse 3 here. Psalm 73:3 says, "For I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." That's interesting. He didn't have a problem with the wickedness until he realized that he wanted a piece of the pie. He was frustrated with what they were having. He was jealous of their success, their comfort, and happiness. You know, we need to be honest enough to distill and kind of deconstruct our doubts to see what's happening under the surface. So doubt your doubt. That's part of the cure. Secondly, worship with truth. Now, I put a couple songs that kind of erupted in my heart as I was meditating on Psalm 73 today. I'll put that in the comments of this video. But worship is what gives us proper perspective. In verse 16 and 17, the psalmist says, "But when I thought how to understand this, it seemed to me to be a wearisome task until I went to the sanctuary of God, and then I discerned." Doubt is processing in honesty, coming and worshiping, praying, singing, approaching God. And it's not fair, honest doubt unless we're engaging God. Sing a hymn, pray a prayer. "God, if you're real, I need you right now. Speak to me." Don't treat God as just some object of your speculation under a microscope that you're trying to dissect and find problems with. Allow yourself to engage with him. So we doubt our doubt, we worship with truth, and then we look at our feet. What are we standing on? I want you to think about this for a second. We see in verse 18, he says, "Truly then I saw that you set them in slippery places. You make them fall to ruin." So the psalmist's doubt is coming from not understanding why the wicked are prospering. But then God shows him that they're not standing on solid ground either. You know, doubt, when you doubt, you're actually putting your faith in something. You're never totally abandoning faith. Your faith might be shaken. But when you doubt, you're actually putting your weight of your belief on something else as a substitute. I love this quote from Sheldon Vanauken, who wrote a book called The Severe Mercy, and he's talking about his conversion experience. He said, "I came to a point, there was a gap between what was possible and what was proved, and I wanted proof. I wanted certainty, letters of fire across the sky. And then I realized there was a gap behind me as well. There was a leap of faith towards acceptance, but also a leap of faith back towards rejection." That's very insightful. I mean, you can reject God, but it takes great faith to do that as well. You might be saying, if God is so great, why is this pain happening in my life? But think about the alternative. If there was no God, the horror of injustice should just seem natural. It shouldn't seem horrible to us all. It should be just, survival of the fittest and things like that. I mean, if there is no God, there is no reason to be outraged at injustice and evil, which was your reason to say that you didn't believe God in the first place. Think about this. The very fact that people raise the objection of the problem of evil is evidence that there is the existence of supreme good. So like Peter, you're going to come to a point where the pull to stay is stronger than the pull to go when he says, "Where else can we go? You alone have the words of life." Or the psalmist says, "Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." And so we doubt our doubts and we worship with truth and we look at our feet. Where are we going to choose to put our trust? In God or in something else? And then finally, we feel his hand. Listen to this from verse 21 through 24. "When my soul was embittered, when I was pricked in heart, I was brutish and ignorant. I was like a beast towards you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you, and you hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will receive me into glory." This is amazing. The psalmist is basically saying, I acted like an animal to you, but you treated me like a son. How is that possible? It's possible because Jesus, when he went to worship, he didn't just worship with truth. He was the truth. And he didn't just go to offer sacrifice. He became the sacrifice. Think of this great line from the hymn, when darkness seems to hide his face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ, the solid rock, I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When we see God himself and his son Jesus hanging on the tree, dying our death and rising in victory, that becomes the proof of his goodness, the greatness and grace and glory that will uphold us when we struggle with doubt. So I want you to just think about, how do we help each other in this? Think about when Philip went to Nathanael and he said, we found the one, the Messiah, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And Nathanael said, Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? Philip didn't say, stop asking your stupid questions. And he didn't say, oh, you're right. Maybe we shouldn't follow a guy from there. What did he say? He said, come and see. And when we struggle with doubt and we have honest and hard questions, we just remind each other, let's go stare at Jesus. Or at the end of the Gospels, think about Jesus before Thomas, who's probably the most famous in the Gospels of doubting. And he said, I will not believe unless I see daylight through the hole of his scars on his hand and put my finger there. And Jesus comes to him and says, Thomas, don't doubt, believe. But then he offers his hands and says, touch my scars. You remember what Thomas did? He fell to his knees and he offered the greatest proclamation of faith in all the Gospels. He said, my Lord, my God. Others had seen Jesus, he was alive, but this was the first time that Jesus was proclaimed as God. And Thomas walked to that amazing declaration over honest doubt. And so doubt is something that we should express to God. We need to doubt our doubt, though, and then we need to continue to worship. And as we're worshiping, we need to look at our feet. Where else would we want our stability to go? He alone has the words of life. And then we need to feel his hand with us. Brothers and sisters, let's walk together. Ask tough questions, but take those questions to God. God bless you.